The streets of Macau never really sleep. Neon lights flicker against the rain-soaked pavement. Casino doors stand half open, and whispers in Cantonese echo through alleys where fortunes once changed hands with a gun, not a pen. Somewhere behind the tinted glass of a black Mercedes, a shadow moves. A man who once ruled these streets with fear, now ruling them with finance. His name, Kuok-koi, known across Asia as Broken Tooth Koi. To the world, he was a criminal. To those who knew better, he was the dragon, the invisible hand guiding China's most feared underground empire, the 14K Triad. But this isn't just about him. It's about the man who turned the dragon's chaos into currency, Chen Zhi, the billionaire face of Prince Holding Group, a man who looked like a philanthropist but moved like a ghost in the global economy. When the Chinese triads began losing ground under Beijing's crackdown, they needed a banker, a front, a diplomat in a suit, and Chen Zhi became all three. From Macau to Phnom Penh, from Hong Kong to Beijing, secret meetings, coded donations, and untraceable money transfers built a partnership that would redefine the meaning of organized crime. Because this time, the underworld didn't just survive the system, it learned to become the system. What happens when the world's most powerful triad stops fighting the state and starts financing it? Long before Chen Zhi became a billionaire, the story began with a man who wore fear like armor, one Kuok-koi, known as Broken Tooth Koi. Born in Macau in 1955, one rose from street-level gambler to the ruthless leader of the 14K Triad, one of the most violent criminal syndicates in Asia. By the mid-1990s, he had turned Macau's casinos into money-printing machines, earning millions each week through extortion, loan sharking, and illegal gambling dens. His reputation was so feared that even police officers crossed the street when they saw his convoy coming. In 1999, just before Macau's handover to China, Wan Kuok-koi was arrested in a dramatic operation led by Macau's judiciary police, charged with money laundering, triad activity, and illegal possession of firearms. He was sentenced to 15 years in Cologne prison, and the world believed the dragon had been slain. But when he was released in 2012, he was no longer a gangster. He was a businessman. The new Broken Tooth didn't return to the alleys or casinos. Instead, he began building what appeared to be a global investment network. Dongmei Group, World Hongmen Association, and Hongmen Blockchain Alliance, all registered under legitimate trade licenses in Macau, Hong Kong, and Cambodia. But those who followed the money saw something deeper. These companies were mirrors, fronts, for 14K's financial resurrection. During this same period, a young and ambitious entrepreneur named Chen Zhi was rising fast in Phnom Penh. His company, Prince Holding Group, seemed like a symbol of modern Cambodia: luxury towers, gleaming casinos, and generous charity foundations. But behind closed doors, investigators later uncovered that Prince wasn't just building real estate, it was building channels. According to an internal FATF intelligence memo, 2019, Chen Zhi met Wan Kuok-koi 3 times between 2014 and 2016. Their goal, to create a financial corridor that would allow Chinese underground capital to flow into Cambodia's booming property sector. For every new casino that rose along Sihanoukville's coast, millions in criminal profits quietly transformed into legitimate investment. One former associate of Wan, speaking anonymously to the Straits Times, described it plainly. Wan needed legitimacy. Chen needed protection. Together, they built a kingdom of shadows. The alliance was as simple as it was brilliant. Wan Kuok-koi and his 14K network provided the money, vast, untraceable, and desperate for cleansing. Chen Zhi provided the infrastructure, a growing empire of banks, charities, and property holdings that could make dirty money look like development aid. By 2018, Prince Group had become one of Cambodia's largest private investors, pouring billions into projects that no regulator dared question. Behind the glimmering towers and golden billboards, whispers spread that 14K had successfully relocated its core financial operations from Macau to Sihanoukville, a tropical paradise reborn as a Triad-controlled haven. And just like that, the dragon's fire found new breath. As one Europol investigator later said, the 14K didn't disappear, it globalized. From Macau's smoke-filled casinos to Cambodia's glittering skyline, the dragon had evolved, trading pistols for portfolios, street power for state partnerships, and bullets for banknotes. What had once been a crime syndicate had now become a corporation. By 2017, the 14K Triad had changed its skin. No longer the street gang that ran casinos and smuggled weapons, it had evolved into what investigators later called the Chinese underground state, a shadow financial system operating parallel to Beijing's legitimate economy. At its center stood one man who could navigate both worlds, Chen Zhi. To the public, Chen was the chairman of Prince Holding Group, a philanthropist often seen shaking hands with Cambodian officials and posing beside charity banners. But leaked intelligence from China's Ministry of Public Security, MPS, published by the paper in 2024, told a darker story. The report described a network of over 180 shell companies spanning Fujian, Guangdong, and Yunnan, all routing funds through Cambodia's banks before vanishing into offshore accounts in Macau, Singapore, and Dubai. The code name used inside MPS documents was chillingly direct: the Prince Corridor. And this corridor acted as a financial highway for China's underground economy. Triads, corrupt officials, and digital fraud networks used it to export their wealth beyond Beijing's reach. Money earned from illegal gambling apps, cross-border loan sharking, prostitution rings, and online scam parks in southern China was discreetly funneled into Prince Group's subsidiaries. There, it was washed through property developments, casino partnerships, and even luxury car dealerships before returning to China as foreign investment dividends. For Beijing, this presented a dilemma. The Communist Party needed to maintain its image of absolute control, but too many insiders, from provincial officials to state enterprise managers, were benefiting from the system. Silencing Chen Zhi would mean exposing their own corruption. So, instead of stopping him, they quietly built walls of protection around him. Investigators later discovered that Chen Zhi's companies were frequently listed among United Front Work Department, UFWD partners, a powerful branch of the Chinese government tasked with cultivating influence abroad. Officially, Prince was praised for promoting Chinese cultural cooperation. In reality, it became a financial shield for Beijing's shadow capital. The arrangement was simple. Chen moved the money. The party looked the other way. An analyst from SOAS University of London summarized it best. Chen Zhi's empire became a mirror image of China itself, state-backed capitalism with criminal efficiency. Between 2018 and 2021, the volume of funds transferred through this network exploded. One FATF report estimated that over $8.6 billion in unrecorded Chinese capital flowed into Cambodia, much of it through Prince Group. Entire neighborhoods in Sihanoukville were built on dirty money. Apartment towers rose overnight, casinos multiplied, and Chinese investors arrived by the thousands. The city's nickname changed from the Pearl of the South to China's Wild East. Behind the spectacle, 14K Triad members operated freely, controlling construction supply chains, casino floors, and even security forces. The line between business and organized crime had completely disappeared. Prince's private security division, originally designed to protect construction sites, reportedly included former People's Liberation Army, PLA, veterans. giving it the power and discipline of a small private army. What made the structure untouchable wasn't its secrecy, it was its integration. The same officials who should have been shutting it down were attending Prince Group banquets, accepting donations for local projects, or receiving consulting fees. One former Chinese intelligence officer, interviewed under anonymity by Asia Sentinel, put it bluntly, 14K became the offshore wallet of China's elite, and Chen was the banker everyone trusted because he looked legitimate. Meanwhile, the Chinese Triad diaspora began using the network for their own purposes. Smuggling syndicates from Fujian laundered their proceeds from human trafficking through Prince's Phnom Penh office. Shenzhen tech scammers reinvested fraud profits into Cambodian real estate. And through Chen's fintech subsidiaries, money moved between continents disguised as digital trade. The system was self-sustaining, a perpetual motion machine of corruption. By 2023, international investigators had begun to take notice. Europol, Interpol, and the US Department of Justice, DOJ, quietly assembled an interagency task force to map the Prince corridor. But each time they got close, another layer appeared. Each company led to another. Each transfer disappeared into legal fog. The deeper they dug, the clearer the pattern became. China wasn't just tolerating its underworld, it was outsourcing it. As one FATF analyst later concluded, what we saw wasn't crime leaking out of China, it was strategy. The 14K Triad, once hunted by the Chinese state, had become its silent partner. And Chen Zhi, the man who turned dirty cash into diplomacy, became the hinge between two worlds, the state above ground and the empire below it. He wasn't laundering money anymore, he was laundering legitimacy. By 2020, what began as a discreet partnership between Chen Zhi and one Kuok-koi had evolved into something much larger, a criminal confederation disguised as development. Across the jungles of Laos, the riverbanks of Myanmar, and the glittering coastline of Sihanoukville, a new Silk Road of blood and business began to emerge, powered by cartel money, state corruption, and a growing web of Chinese triads. The turning point came when Chen Zhi extended his empire into the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone, GTSEZ, a region already infamous for narcotics, human trafficking, and illegal casinos. Officially, Prince Group announced its expansion as part of Regional Investment and Trade Integration. But intelligence from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, later confirmed that GTSEZ had become one of the world's most sophisticated laundering hubs, where the 14K Triad handled both logistics and finance. Satellite photos from 2020 showed rapid construction in the GTSEZ, new hotels, warehouses, and even private airstrips. Inside these compounds, according to Thai and Lao police, traffickers paid licensing fees to use facilities controlled by Prince-linked subcontractors. In return, Chen's corporate branches provided import-export services that made every transaction look legal. Methamphetamine, gold, timber, and cryptocurrencies all flowed through the same routes, sanitized by paperwork disguised as commerce. One insider, Liu Yong, a former Prince Group financial officer who later defected to Thailand, described it coldly. "We didn't transport drugs, we transported value." Through shell companies registered in Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Vanuatu, Prince affiliates purchased development rights in remote zones across Southeast Asia. But these projects were ghost cities, concrete shells built to move money, not people. Behind each building was a contract linking back to a 14K investment fund, and behind each fund was another offshore account in Dubai or Cyprus. The loop was endless and perfectly legal on paper. At the same time, one Kuok-koi rebranded his global network under the World Hongmen Association, marketing it as a patriotic Chinese cultural alliance. Its logo, a red dragon wrapped around a globe, appeared on banners in Phnom Penh, Bangkok, and Macau, often beside the logo of Prince Group. Beneath the surface, the two were inseparable. While Chen Zhi provided legitimacy through corporate structures, one provided muscle and contacts. By 2022, 14K's presence was undeniable. In Myanmar's Mayawadi region, Prince-financed compounds became front operations for scam syndicates targeting victims in China, Europe, and the US. Chinese fugitives worked there under the guise of tech workers, generating billions in fraudulent crypto transactions. When Thai police raided one such facility in 2023, they found ledgers linking it to Prince Digital Finance Co. Limited, a Phnom Penh-registered subsidiary. But the partnership didn't end with Southeast Asia. Interpol later traced connections between Prince Group and Latin American money routes used by both Mexican cartels and Triad logistics brokers. They were exporting precursor chemicals, ephedrine and acetic anhydride, essential for meth production. The chemicals originated from China's coastal ports, traveled through Cambodia, and were laundered through construction supply invoices managed by Chen's companies. This wasn't smuggling anymore. It was vertical integration of crime, where every layer of the supply chain, from production to laundering, was owned by the same invisible consortium. Inside Sihanoukville, the transformation was visible. Once a sleepy port town, it now resembled a dystopian boomtown. High-rises under construction, Chinese lettering on every building, and luxury casinos that never closed. Locals whispered about armed men guarding warehouses at night, and convoys of black SUVs arriving without license plates. Beneath the glow of LED billboards, the underworld had found a new capital city. According to a 2024 Europol briefing, over $5.2 billion in narcotics revenue and online fraud money had been laundered through Cambodian projects linked to Prince and 14K. None of it could be traced directly to Chen Zhi. He had perfected invisibility. Every company was a buffer, every transaction a performance. A regional intelligence officer summed it up with chilling accuracy. It's not one man against the system anymore. It's one system built by men like him. By now, Chen Zhi and Kuok-koi had created a new model, a corporate mafia that transcended borders and laws. Violence was no longer necessary. The weapon was the balance sheet. And as the towers rose higher and the donations grew larger, one truth echoed across the region. The Triad no longer needed Macau's casinos or Hong Kong's docks. It had something far better, a country that called it investment. By the summer of 2023, pressure on Prince Holding Group had begun to mount. Investigations by Europol, FinCEN, and the US Department of Justice were closing in, tracing billions in suspicious transactions that linked Chen Zhi to the 14K Triad and the sprawling network of Golden Triangle operations. Yet every time an inquiry neared its breakthrough, something strange happened. The trail went cold. Witnesses disappeared. Records were sealed. And Cambodian authorities, once open to foreign cooperation, suddenly declared the matter a private business issue. Behind this silence lay a secret that investigators would only later piece together. Chen Zhi was protected by China itself. It started quietly. In May 2023, Chen Zhi appeared in Beijing as an invited guest at the China-ASEAN Business Forum, sitting beside senior advisors to the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, the same advisory body where former 14K-linked figures had been quietly rehabilitated under the guise of businessmen and philanthropists. His presence wasn't accidental. It was a signal. Sources inside Hong Kong's National Security Bureau later revealed that Chen Zhi had secured what is known within elite Chinese circles as a Red Shield, an informal network of political patrons within the United Front Work Department, UFWD. This department, one of the most powerful arms of the Communist Party, is tasked with extending Chinese influence abroad by building alliances with overseas businessmen, cultural figures, and organizations. To become a united front asset is to gain near total protection as long as you remain useful. Through united front channels, Chen's empire became untouchable. When Interpol filed an inquiry about the Prince Group 14K connection, Beijing classified it as a matter of national interest. When Europol sought cooperation from Chinese banks over suspicious money transfers to Cambodia, requests were delayed indefinitely. By then, Chen Zhi was no longer just a billionaire. He was a strategic instrument of China's global influence campaign. He financed Chinese friendship projects across Southeast Asia, sponsored events that promoted the Belt and Road Initiative, and donated millions to charity programs connected to the Overseas Chinese Affairs Office. Publicly, he was hailed as a patriotic entrepreneur. Privately, intelligence documents described him as the financial interface of the 14K United Front hybrid. One investigator from Europol's Asia-Pacific division called it a state-sanctioned firewall of corruption. And the Red Shield system worked like this. For every dollar Chen moved that benefited Beijing's soft power expansion, whether by stabilizing regimes in Cambodia or funding pro-China business councils, his past crimes were forgiven. And if anyone asked questions, they were buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, diplomacy, and denial. Evidence later surfaced that Chen's travel documents included multiple identities issued through Chinese diplomatic channels. One passport listed him as a special economic envoy. Another bore a red diplomatic seal, granting him immunity from investigation in several ASEAN nations. Even his private jet carried registration codes linked to state-owned enterprises. In effect, Chen Zhi had become a ghost in plain sight, shielded by the machinery of the world's most powerful government. In September 2024, when Interpol red notices were rumored to be circulating, he made a surprise appearance in Macau, attending a World Hongmen Association gala, sitting just 2 seats away from Kuok-koi himself. Cameras caught the two exchanging smiles, a handshake, and a toast under a crimson banner that read, "Harmony through prosperity." For investigators, that image was infuriating and symbolic. The dragon and his banker reunited under China's protection. As one FATF official said during a private briefing in Geneva, "You can arrest criminals, but what do you do when the state is the accomplice?" The Red Shield ensured that Chen Zhi was no longer just a fugitive. He was a protected asset of a superpower, operating in a gray zone between diplomacy and crime. And as the global crackdown intensified, he did what he had always done best: vanish behind legitimacy. Because when you are protected by a flag, the law becomes nothing more than a formality. By 2025, the world believed the storm had passed. Operation Silk Road 2.0 had exposed Chen Zhi, Prince Holding Group, and their alleged ties to the 14K Triad. International headlines called it a victory for global justice. But those who had spent years following the money knew better. The empire hadn't fallen, it had simply disappeared from sight. Inside the encrypted ledgers of Hong Kong, Macau, and Beijing, the network lived on, stripped of its name, but not its power. The 14K Triad, once a symbol of criminal brutality, had successfully evolved into something new, an invisible institution woven into the machinery of China's economic rise. While public attention turned elsewhere, former Prince subsidiaries quietly re-emerged under new names: East Lotus Financial, Dragon Path Holdings, and Hongmen Capital Group. Each operated independently, but together they mirrored the exact architecture of Chen Zhi's empire. Offshore audits revealed that many of these companies shared identical directors, the same legal proxies who once handled Prince Group's assets in Cambodia and Macau. According to a 2025 Europol dossier, these entities moved over $6.7 billion in the months following Operation Silk Road 2.0. The destinations were eerily familiar: Dubai, Doha, Kuala Lumpur, and Macau. When analysts overlaid transaction patterns from both periods, the maps matched almost perfectly. It was as if the system had rebuilt itself. One high-ranking source in FinCEN described it this way: "You can cut off the head, but not the algorithm." Behind the restructured facade, the same alliances persisted. One Kuok-koi, Broken Tooth, remained the ideological figurehead, now operating under the guise of the World Hongmen Association. Through cultural festivals, trade conferences, and business development forums, his organization continued to connect Chinese diaspora businessmen across Southeast Asia. What these events really did was renew the Triad's network under the label of patriotism. At the same time, Chen Zhi had become a ghost, unseen, unheard, and untraceable. Officially, his last public appearance was in Macau in September 2024 at the Hongmen Gala. After that, no photo, no flight record, no verified sighting. Yet, in financial data, his presence was unmistakable. Large transfers linked to Prince legacy companies still bore his encrypted initials, CZ. Rumors of his whereabouts spread like wildfire. Some said he was living in Almaty, Kazakhstan, under the protection of Chinese intelligence. Others claimed he'd retreated to Macau, moving only between high-security apartments owned by Hongmen affiliates. One unconfirmed report from Interpol Asia Division even suggested he'd undergone facial reconstruction to avoid recognition, but no one could prove any of it. Meanwhile, in Cambodia, a new generation of businessmen stepped into the spotlight. Polished, fluent in Mandarin, and seemingly unconnected to any scandal. Yet many shared one thing in common: their companies were financed by anonymous funds from Hong Kong or Macau. The dragon had shed its skin once again. An analyst from The Diplomat wrote, "The Triad used to thrive in shadows. Now, it hides in sunlight, beneath the flags of development and prosperity." Across the border in China, signs of this quiet absorption became even clearer. Former 14K strongholds in Guangzhou and Shenzhen were now officially registered as business clusters. Old gang leaders were rebranded as cultural ambassadors. Their loyalty no longer belonged to the streets, it belonged to the state. By late 2025, Beijing's Ministry of Public Security released a report declaring the Triad problem largely neutralized. What it didn't mention was that the network hadn't been destroyed, it had been nationalized. The transformation was complete. The underworld that once operated against the state had now merged with it. Chen Zhi had proved that crime didn't need to resist power, it only needed to mimic it. And so, the dragon that once ruled Macau's alleys now pulsed quietly through China's financial arteries, invisible, efficient, eternal. As one veteran Europol investigator admitted off-record, the Triad didn't vanish, it evolved into governance. And somewhere in a glass tower in Macau, a screen flickers to life, encrypted transfers scrolling endlessly. The last entry reads only, "Legacy, active." The skyline of Macau glows gold against the night. Towers built on secrets, windows reflecting the past. Somewhere above the city, in a penthouse where no one dares to knock, a computer hums quietly. No guards, no guns, no Triad tattoos. Only code, lines of numbers moving billions, rewriting borders, bending laws. This is the new empire of Chen Zhi, the empire of the invisible dragon. Once, the underworld ruled with blades and bullets. Now, it rules through balance sheets and diplomatic handshakes. The 14K Triad, once the fear of Macau's back alleys, has become a silent partner in global finance. The line between corruption and governance has vanished, and perhaps that was the plan all along. The world celebrates the arrests, the sanctions, the raids. But in the digital silence that follows, money still moves. Governments change, systems evolve. The dragon sleeps, but its eyes never close. What if the real triumph of organized crime wasn't survival, but transformation? As dawn breaks over Sihanoukville and the lights of Macau fade, one truth remains. You can imprison men, but not the machinery they built. The dragon has no face, no flag, no master, only purpose. The Triad connection was never just a story about crime, it was a story about evolution and how the shadows learned to wear suits.